Many teachers are keen readers, but few let their classrooms know about this. I'm joined by Teresa Kremen from the Open University and Becky Thompson from Bannerman Road Community Academy and Children's Centre, Bristol, to discuss why this is and what research has discovered about those who do share. Teresa, what exactly is a reading teacher? Aren't all teachers reading teachers?
Well, at one level, of course, they are. All teachers teach reading. But Michelle Comares' work in the States highlighted this phrase, which is to be a reading teacher, you're a teacher who reads and a reader who teaches. And our own research in England showed that when teachers explore the interplay between these two stances, themselves as a reader and themselves as a teacher, and then begin to consider what that might mean for the young people in their classrooms, they're more effectively building communities of readers, building relationships with younger readers and beginning to understand more about what reading might encompass in the 21st century.
So what does this look like in the classroom then?
I think there's two parts to it. One is that I read in front of my class, so that might be a non-fiction book I'm reading at the moment about an artist, or it might be a novel that I'm reading that might be an adult novel, or I might be reading a children's book, but they see me reading, they see the practice of me being engrossed in a book and enjoying it. I think the second part of that is that I share my identity as a reader with my class. So I share what I like about reading, my preferences, and I share how I read as well. So that's sort of looking at the behaviours of a reader. And by doing that, I sort of reflected on myself and how do I actually read? Because I think sometimes I've certainly encouraged my class to sit at a table quietly and read on their own. And then I think about how I read, and actually when I read for pleasure at home, that's not what I do. So I think I share that with my class so that they can see reading is not the same for everybody. Everybody might read differently, but you're still a reader.
So how has reflecting on your own reading for pleasure then impacted on what you're doing in the classroom?
So I think the impact has been that my class have seen reading as, sounds a bit silly maybe, but almost as a real thing. You're not sort of sat with a book in front of you and reading all the words on the page and that's reading. It's about being invested in the book and wanting to know what happens next, or being interested by something.
Talking about it maybe too.
Yeah, exactly. It's that sort of wanting to share that with others, and it not necessarily, it might be an independent thing, but it might also be something that, oh, this is just so brilliant, I have to share it with somebody else. And I think that being part of being a reader has developed in my classroom. So rather than sort of seeing reading as something where we sit on our own and we do it and we don't talk to anybody about it, we can read, we can enjoy it, we can talk to people about it, we can share, we can make recommendations, and
reading
that
is a
too is being a reader.
Activity in that sense,
exactly, and that's all part of being a reader.
Do you find though that you're spending a lot of time then focusing on your reading identity and your reading behaviour and not so much on the children's?
Yes, initially, but I would say that by reflecting on myself, it's had a big impact on my class. So yes, I did spend time on myself, which was lovely, thinking about myself as a reader, but the impact has been on my class as well. So I started thinking about what I do when I read, and I had a bit of a scribble on a piece of paper and thinking about, for me, I do stop and think and maybe pause. I might take a break. I might think about how it relates to something else. I might ask questions. I might come across something I didn't know about and go and Google it. I might think, oh my goodness, do you know what? My mum would love this book, and I might phone her up and talk about it for half an hour before I go back to the book. And those are things that I do as a reader. And thinking about that made me think about what my class are maybe like as readers with their reading identity. And that actually it's quite important that they know this is what I do, because otherwise I'm not giving them a real sort of image of a reader.
You want them to be like you, is kind of follow what you do, ring mum, etc., or is it?
No, not at all. It's more for them to know that actually they too have a reader identity. And so I don't want them to all be sort of mini-me readers,
no,
but for them to realise actually that they have a reading identity, and maybe they do want to sit on their own quietly and read it, and that is fine. Maybe they do want to talk about it. Maybe they want to take a break.
It'll depend on the book too, won't it? Or
exactly.
The text they're reading, if it's a comic or...
But that identity is important and is different, but is essential to being a reader.
It seems in a sense what you're describing is that summary of a reading teacher, capital R, capital T, who's kind of teaching from a reader's point of view rather than a teacher's point of view. Does that make sense?
I think that's a great way of putting it. Teresa, Becky, thank you very much.